that's your app that it starts it in automatically. It's on that when the first time it showed up there. Everybody,
Hello, hello.
you hear us okay?
Recording in progress.
Super.
Super.
It's 5:05, Tuesday, the 25th. This is a postponed and rescheduled meeting of the Needham Housing Authority regular board meeting. We're meeting hybrid successfully, finally, and pursuant to the acts of 2022, Chapter 107, we just received a notice from the Assistant Deputy Town Manager, Katie King, that this permission to do it this way will expire on the 31st of January, 2020. I'm sorry, 31st of March, 2025, and it hasn't been renewed yet. And so maybe under that circumstance, all board members will have to attend in person unless they get a permission slip from the chair. Didn't quite put it that way, but that's the essence here. Just heads up to everybody on that. This meeting was posted.
Meeting and then I won't.
Putting yourself on mute. Ed?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ed Scheidler present.
No, would you put, yeah, I'm sorry, we could hear you talking loud and clear over our speakerphone now.
Sorry.
The notice was posted on last Friday with the town clerk setting forth the date and time and around our usual places of posting. I'm going to call the roll. Reg Foster is here.
Jim Flanagan's here.
Ed Scheidler's here.
Penny Kirk here.
Janice Bennett is here.
Great, we have a quorum. We have a lot to discuss at tonight's meeting, and because of the postponement, it conflicts with the select board's meeting that starts at 6 o'clock, where they're going to be talking about a lot of Needham Housing Authority things. And they won't start until talking to about 6:15. But I'm pretty sure we have more than an hour's worth of agenda items here. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to start the meeting. We're going to do things on the agenda out of order, that of our normal order, because I do have to leave maybe 5:50 or something like that. And we also have Matt Zajac and Chris Moyer of the Cambridge Housing Authority with us as well. And that will be economical on their time if we move agenda item D, Preservation and Redevelopment Initiative, up front. And then we'll circle around and start over from the beginning with our usual resident input here. So I think the residents are all going to be extremely interested in what we're doing first anyway. And then I'm going to turn the meeting over to our vice chair for his maiden voyage as running the meeting. So I request kindness and generosity and the presumption of grace. It may be the first meeting you've ever run in the town of Needham. All right.
Hopefully not the last.
So I think you'll have a lot of helpers here, if you kind of.
Meeting going to be recorded,
Yes, definitely.
so it will be available.
Could I
Yeah.
be recognized?
Yeah. What's the matter?
You know? Okay, yeah, I'd like to do the comment period. Like we normally do, and I promise it'll be brief, but
I
do need
can't
to-
do that tonight. I'm awfully sorry. And it's just,
Right.
Unfortunately, we had this technical snafu is the other thing I wanted to apologize to everybody here for the other day. It was gonna be
Okay, well,
fine and it
in the
wasn't.
future, I'm gonna try and corral the support because a change in the agenda usually goes before the board.
No, it is the discretion
All right, I
of
won't
the board.
discuss it, take it away, just keep
It
going.
is at the discretion of the board chair, and we're using up our time here,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
don't worry about it. I will watch, if I aren't here for your comments, I will definitely watch them on our Zoom recording
Oh,
afterwards.
I'm not gonna be hanging around, that's why I wanna do it
Okay.
as scheduled.
Okay,
You know, I'm not gonna be. able
I'm
to-
sorry. Now, there are a number of important things that have been developed over the last month and I have, some speaking notes here, if anybody wants a copy of them. How many did you take here? Because I brought them for the people in the room, but got two here, we can share around. This is just my speaking notes about what I'm gonna say, so people don't have to worry about it.
I had, I think,
Yeah.
is there another set of copy?
I thought I handed them to you here, but maybe I didn't.
Just take the printed ones I did from home.
All right, here about this copies, there we go, thank you. Okay, so we have two projects, Linden, Terrace redevelopment and Seabeds Cook modernization going on at the same time. We also have a major CPA funding, request, before the CPC that's going to be discussed, later tonight at the select board and then again tomorrow at the CPC meeting, which starts at 7 o'clock. And I'm gonna do a summary, and then maybe if we could tee up, Matt and Chris to correct anything I get wrong afterwards, and then we'll open it up to questions from the board and even questions from the floor, for the residents, because this is obviously very important to everybody. So here's the developments, that have happened. Very fast moving. Number one, we have the Linden Terrace Phase 1A redevelopment project. And we were invited by EOHLC to submit a final funding application, which is great news. We need $45 to $50 million worth of funding to do Phase 1A. And we also need, rental subsidies from Seabeds Cook in that project, which we'll get to in a minute, for the status update. But that funding application is due Thursday at the latest, drop dead deadline. You miss the deadline, you have to wait another year to the deadline. So there's been a huge number of activities going into that funding deadline and materials that have to be submitted. We also have to have in place 6 agreements that have already been reviewed by the board in draft form last November, and was approved by the board in draft form last November, but I'm bringing them back today, just to remind the board that we approved them last November and to see if anybody has any questions about them. And then I'm gonna ask for a fresh approval from the board, because having those approvals are necessary for the application and also the agreements that we have before the town. The 3 agreements before the town are a no pilot agreement. What does pilot stand for? It's an acronym, payment in lieu of taxes. So ever since Linden Chambers was built, we have not paid any property taxes. A commercial apartment building owner would have had to pay much money over the 60 years or so, but that is a contribution from the town. And because that understanding was reached 60+ years ago, for the application, we have to renew that agreement going forward. So we have a no pilot agreement that is something we reviewed last November, and we will be signing tomorrow if the town approves it tonight. So those are, it's on the agenda for the town's board meeting tonight, select board meeting. That was the reason we wanted to have our meeting last Thursday, by the way, so things are a little down to the wire here. The second one we all know about is that 24 town meeting voted to provide $5.5 million of CPA funding for the construction of Linden Terrace. And that has been done by town meeting, but then you have to have a grant agreement with the town that's been under negotiation for months and then finally came to a head in the last week or two since last meeting. And that agreement needs to be approved tonight so that the select board can approve it tonight and we can sign that tomorrow. The third agreement is a release of restrictions agreement. And that's an agreement that addresses various inconsistencies and defects in the title paperwork at the Norfolk Registry of Deeds. When the original Linden and Chambers Street developments were built in 3 phases, starting in 1957 and going to 1970. So these are just technical corrections and cleanup stuff, sort of stuff the lawyers will appreciate, but it has to be cleaned up before we go in with our application. Now, we also have 3 more agreements with our new developer partner, AHSC, Peabody Developer LLC. Everybody's familiar with who they've been. They have been working night and day to get to this point of putting this big application in for 50 million bucks. And they're not here tonight, but I think everybody's met them and heard presentations from them. And the first agreement is called the Land Disposition and Development Designation Agreement. And that's the formal agreement where we actually hire them. And when I say we, it's the Needham Housing Authority, hire them, AHSC and Peabody, to do the project. And that, again, agreement we looked at a month or 2 ago. It's been tweaked and tweaked. There's some tweaks that are required to conform it with what the town wants as well. And that agreement is available for Q&A tonight, and I'd like to have that reapproved tonight as well. The 4th agreement and the 5th, I'm sorry, so that was the 4th agreement. The 5th and the 6th agreement are were also reviewed at the same time and a part of this land disposition and development designation agreement. And these are options to do a ground lease. So what does that mean? We have 11 acres surrounding us right now. And the Linden Street part of it sits on about 4 acres from where we stand, maybe just behind us, that building, and goes all the way north to the edge of the Linden Street property. And approximately 2 acres of it are going to be ground leased by the NHA to the development and ultimately owner and operator entity that will be running the first the 76 units that are built during phase 1A, and then the 60 additional units at phase 1B, sort of roughly two acre parcels. And you have to have like a 2 or 3 page agreement that says, here are the meets and bounds of the 1A acres and 2 acres, and here's the meets and bounds of the 1B development, and with a map that shows how it's divided between it, like what you would see in a deed for buying a house. So those are the 6 agreements. I'm going to skip over just other brief updates. The Jim Burke lawsuit is continuing with no response from the Superior Court yet. It's cost us $16,317 of legal fees so far to address that lawsuit. And the next steps for all of this in a minute is to have a board Q&A discussion and motions for the board to approve not only the Needham Housing Authority, but the NHA Development Corporation, which is a wholly owned subsidiary and nonprofit organization that was formed because to actually go forward with these agreements, we, the Needham Housing Authority, can't be the entity. It needs to be a standalone LLC, or corporation entity to make this happen legally. All right, now I'm going to go on to the next things are going on with the CPA funding applications. We submitted a funding application for $5.6 million for the Seabeds Cook project because that's what we thought we would need from the CPA last October or November when we put it in. When we completed all the analysis that was caused by not being able to go forward with the Section 22 repositioning program, but having to go back to the Section 18 repositioning program, and I mentioned this last month, it caused a very significant increase in the amount of money that we need for that project. And that's for both Seabeds and Cook to go forward together. It requires about $10 million of CPA funds to make both projects viable. However, these Needham CPA accounts only have about $6 million in them, so there just isn't enough money to go around. We did put an innovative out-of-the-box proposal to the town saying, you know, you can use your CPA funding stream to issue bonds, 20 or 30-year general municipal obligation bonds, and that would raise enough money to cover both Seabeds and Cook, and one more housing project that was submitted this cycle. But after considering all this, the town isn't ready to proceed forward on that basis. They haven't made a formal decision on that, but there's been many informal meetings and so forth that said, yeah, technically, theoretically, it's possible to go down that road, but we have these big school projects coming up. You know, we need to redo Pollard Middle School. That's from going in at $200 or $300 million worth of expense, amazingly, to do the new middle school over. And we just don't want to add any more other debt to the town right now. So that left us in a bit of a pickle, because I said before, we need 41 Faircloth units, subsidy units from Seabeds and Cook to make phase 1A viable in the application that we submit a day or two. And to get those Faircloth units, we actually have to go forward with the Seabeds Cook, or at least a portion of it, before we can close the financing for the Linden Terrace redevelopment. So our very excellent consultants from Cambridge Housing Authority said, well, there's another way we can proceed. We can go forward with a Seabeds first, or Cook second modernization project. So we get the money this year for Seabeds, and then we'd apply next year for the more money to go forward with Cook. And that would yield us 41 Faircloth units, and also allow us to get going on the Seabeds preservation and modernization project, which is definitely needed. So we, meaning the Cambridge Housing Authority, did a bunch of analysis on that. And then we floated the idea out to the Community Preservation Committee. You know, would it be more acceptable if we went that approach? And that approach, from their point of view, is a very good idea, given that we can't do the bonding, because it only requires about $3.2 million of CPA funding to go forward, and that's within the funds that they have available. So again, no decisions have been made, but that's been favorably received as a plan B by the Community Preservation Committee. And on the select board agenda tonight is a presentation by this Community Preservation Committee, sort of a status update on how things are going. So that's another thing that's on the agenda for tonight, which I need to run out of here and make sure that there's somebody to answer questions if it's needed here. You know, the other thing that's required by the Linden Terrace project is they still were falling, by the Seabeds Cook project, is they were still falling $1.2 million short of the money that we need to do the Seabeds First project. But that happens to coincide with the amount of developer fee the Needham Housing Authority is getting to actually do the Linden Terrace Phase 1A redevelopment. We are splitting that developer fee with Peabody and AHSC, and we will have the ability, and there's a legal way we can do it, where we can commit that $1.2 million that is spun off from doing the Linden Terrace project to help complete the financing for the Seabeds First project. And the Seabeds First project then can spin off the 41 subsidy units called Faircloth units. It used to be called, they have a new euphemistic name, but I don't never remember it. And that can come over here and make it possible for us to do the Linden Street project. What are the cons of going Seabeds first and Cook second? Well, it bumps the Cook project into the future, so construction costs go up because of inflation. Um, and the calculations are that we are going to need more CPA funding to make up the gap if we do a Seabed's first project than we would if the town had money to do it all at the same time, but they don't. And we've been beating the bushes for all other available sources of funding, and this is where things stand. The other item of concern that's happened, and people might have noticed in the last month, is the Trump administration has taken hold and they're firing everybody, you know, agency by agency. We have our good friend Elon Musk. I'm a Tesla owner and I'm very happy with Elon Musk in my Tesla. I don't know about the rest of this here. But more seriously, things are very unstable in Washington. If we don't get going on these projects, who knows where things are going to be in a couple of years, and we might have nothing. So the next steps on this, in 1 second, is, and I will come to Q&A, don't worry, is again, first board Q&A and discussion. We have Matt and Chris here. And then I will take, you know, any comments from attendees, either virtually or here in the room. And then if this meets with the approval with the board, that, you know, I'm going to ask for a formal vote to approve a pivot or change in our strategy to a seabeds first approach, which is not something we've formally decided. We've discussed it for the last month or two and we sort of saw it coming. You know, now it's time to make a formal decision because I've got to bring that back to the CPC meeting tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, because they need to know that. And if they do know that, then they will be able to proceed through the rest of their process that runs to March 19th, Wednesday, March 19th, which is the formal date that they take a vote on how much money to award to whom, okay? All right, first, Matt or Chris, did I forget to mention anything important?
Everyone, Matt Zajac, Deputy Director for Cambridge Housing Authority and NHA's consultant. Reg, I think that was a good summary of the considerations, just to sort of underline the risks with the phased approach. Second phase faces potential cost increases, as well as the uncertainty of the current federal environment that you talked about. And there is the potential for deterioration of that property in the interim. But of course, as you mentioned, those risks have to be balanced against the ability to move a project forward. We appreciate you know, the board's consideration of the request and the scoping memo. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, great. So let me go to board members first. I'll do it in order of rank, I guess. I'll look at Jim here and we'll go around again if we, you know, call it what you need to. Jim, any thoughts or comments or questions?
Quick question and a thought. And that is, with the submission, hopefully this week, for Linden Phase 1A, the one stop, February 27th. Can you give me a couple next steps after that?
Yes, so we then, you know, wait.
Yeah.
And it goes into a black box. There's not, I've been told, this is my first trip through the process, but I've been told, and Matt can, again, correct me if I'm wrong, even though this isn't his project, or Chris, you know, I've been told that there's not a lot of visibility on what happens inside the black box. They rarely, if ever, you know, ask proposers, developers in to answer questions. They just go off of what you've submitted. And sometime in the late May to late middle of June time period, there is a big announcement of all the projects that made the cut. For example, they had a mini round that happened last June, and just last week, they issued an announcement for like $180 million worth of projects. I'm happy to provide that articles, anybody would like to take a look at it. With it, that's what we're seeking, is to be on that announcement. It's announced by the governor and the lieutenant governor and the secretary. It's a very big deal, politically, obviously, for obvious reasons, given the housing shortage in Massachusetts, but that's the answer.
Good, thank you. And then my comment was just with regard to the decision between seabeds, not between, but the need to defer Cook. And I just want to say, it's really disappointing, right? It hurts in so many ways. You know, first and foremost, for our residents who have waited far too long for the improvements. Financially, not as important, but financially it stinks, because if you said any deferral right off the bat, we're looking at another 3.7 million. And potentially not the opportunity to get federal funding. You know, I know, you know, the town has been considerate in a lot of ways and we work with them, but I wish they could go back to the well and try to find a way to get that money to get the additional match outside of Needham. Because I'm just scared to death that that window is gonna close in the longer term.
That's a good point, both those points.
And so that's it. It's recognition of that. That said, I understand the importance of sustaining momentum here. We cannot pause a bit, especially with what's going on in Washington. I reluctantly am going to approve this approach, but we just wanted to share that.
And you reminded me of a point I didn't make that's also critically important, which is even if we kind of were able to convince the town or the CPC to put forward a bonding approach, you know, and it wouldn't be unanimous from the CPC, or it wouldn't be unanimous from the finance committee needs to recommend, or it wouldn't be unanimous from the select board. But, you know, even if we could do that somehow and get it on the town meeting warrant for the May 5th town meeting, all debt that's approved, this is a state law, requires a 2/3 vote of town meeting, not a 50% vote. And it's always very, very hard to get a 2/3 vote. And the other factor here is that CPA articles like this can't be amended from town meeting floor. They can either be voted up or voted down. So if we put a $10 million bonding up there and we don't get the 2/3 vote, we only get 60% vote, then it fails and two bad things happen. Number one, we have nothing. We can't go forward with either project. And number two is it generally the rule that if a town meeting warrant article fails, you can't bring it up again for another 2 years for the same project. So thank you. Penny and Ed and then Janice, questions?
Yes, I would like to thank Jim for his well thought out comments. And thank Matt and Chris and the rest of the Cambridge Housing team that have steered us so professionally and well done through this maze. And I'd like to thank you, Reg, that you're working more than a full-time job on this project. And you know, without your efforts and the cooperation of Cambridge Housing and their knowledge, this whole thing could not even begin to happen. So I congratulate all the people that are involved. It's just spectacular performance.
Thank you, Ed.
I'd like to add something.
Ed,
You know, I said last meeting, I was disappointed in the contingency plan, but I understand why. Is because we had to pivot and go back to the RAD or the section 18. But it was because I was so devastated about Cooks not being able to go first. And I understand that we there's more fair cloth units, and that's what we need for the contingency. I do feel for the residents and, because we've had to have residents move out of their units because they've basically been condemned. It's not a good thing. It's not. That's all I can say on that. But I do want to thank, Matt. You did a great presentation, even better than the one you presented here with the, Preservation Committee. So thank you. I just want to say it makes me sad, the whole situation, you know. But we are where we are, and we don't know what's coming down the pike from Washington. So that really opens up a whole new can of worms for the residents. I mean, I don't want to go ahead forward with seabeds and have the faucet just shut off, that he pulls something, because I heard today that he's going to be shutting off funding for Massachusetts housing authorities. I don't know if any of you've heard that, but it's just devastating what's happening. So, yeah, okay, I'm done.
Well, thank you, Janet. I appreciate your comments there. Penny, do you have any comments or questions?
Okay. I'm going to say ditto, and I fully appreciate Jim's remarks, and your effort, Reg, is just beyond belief. And we just have to hang in there. We're very unsettled, all of us, about what's happening, and we just have to keep trying. I'm
Super. I'm
also
gonna,
saying aye to the 6 motions.
so we'll get there in a moment. I want to see if Cheryl has any questions or comments to add at this point. Before we open it up to the
The only thing
attendees.
I'm going to add is that there will be a resident meeting at Seabiscuit Way, Captain Lemon Cook Drive on Thursday, March 6th. If that's a Thursday.
Thursday, March 6th, at what time?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Yeah, that was a recommendation you made and Chris made, that, you know, if we make these decisions tonight, and if the select board makes their decisions tonight and the course is set, then we should get a residents meeting as soon as we can, and yeah, do them the courtesy of going through them, all this, in case they hadn't attended tonight here. Okay. Questions from the room first, and anybody online who wants to have a question or comment, please raise your hand on your, yeah. Go ahead. Anybody here?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Needham Housing Authority. I live at 28 Chambers Street. My question is, I've heard, they might leave our buildings alone, and I don't know if that's an option in the future. If we can't get funding, are they gonna bulldoze us anyways?
So the answer to that question is Chambers, the 5 Chambers buildings are not involved in the Linden Phase 1A and 1B. It's just the 72 units and the 1-story buildings behind, front of us, behind you folks. In the future, it probably would be a good idea to tackle Chambers Street, but that's a future that's 5 or 7 years down the road, because it's going to take us 5 or 6 years, you know, or let's call it 3 or 4 years or 5 years, just to do Linden Phase 1 and Phase 1A and 1B. So, so for now, nothing's going to be changing there. More questions in the room? Yes, go ahead, Jim.
Question is, who do you file your application with?
EOHLC, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. We used to know them as DHCD, but they rebranded themselves.
State agency or federal?
The state agency, yes. And they
make the
could,
decision?
the way the federal government works with all their money is they decide how much money all the states get. and then they designate one agency in each state, and they delegate them to put out an annual funding competition where not only the tax credit funding is awarded, but about 10 to 12 other sources of state and federal funding are also all considered just from one application. So my analogy, I found finally everybody understands. Anybody who's put kids into college and you know what the Common App is, the Common Application is one application that's submitted to a whole bunch of colleges. You don't have to do 10 separate applications for 10 colleges. So it's similar to that. Yes, Jim.
My second question is, I was under the impression you were looking for $80 million for 1A and 1B.
Yes.
Why is there a split now?
Because the consultants were about 99% sure that a project of that size would not get funding. It's too big, number one. And then actually, even before we got that information, we're very sensitive to, there are actually 72 units with 72 people having their homes or more in these units, and doing everything at the same time just made temporary tenant relocation even harder, because it's such a scarce thing, housing in this area is so scarce. So we tried to figure out the smallest number of units that we could effectively tear down and replace with the 1A building. And that turned out to be the 10 buildings. We started our northern boundary towards Oak Street and do 10 buildings this direction. That's the footprint.
Thank you.
So I see Kalpana Sue has her hand up there. Maybe you can promote her or allow her to speak there, Cheryl. There you are, Sue. We can see you. You have
Okay.
to.
I just
Oh.
wanted to say I am with Janice about my feelings for Captain Robert Cook, even though I have not lived there for many years. And I know Cheryl, being a former resident, she is, as a resident, she saw some of the problems we had way back then. And I feel horrible that Cook's Bridge is going to have to wait yet again to have any improvements made. And my heart goes out to all the residents who are down there. Certainly when I was living there, yeah, we had had physical problems, but nothing like it is right now. And so I'm with Janice on this. I wish there was some way we could actually get Cook's Bridge reconstructed first. I know my neighbors up here on Seabed probably won't agree with me, but that's the way I feel. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You lowered Sue's hand there. And anybody else online? No, we have another question here. Go ahead. Two questions.
My name is David Schubel from Needham Housing Authority again. So in 5 years, you said it's an automatic bulldoze and they are going to build a new thing.
No, it's not automatic at all. It's a pipe
They
dream.
might do it.
Yeah, it's
Trying to get funding to do it
no, we're not.
in 5 years. No.
Or 10 years.
Right.
I mean, it's not even on the radar screen at this point.
Thank you.
Yes, Roland.
I have two questions. The first question is concerning the funding from HUD. I mean, from the time that the application, even if it's approved, before the money actually is deposited into these limited liability companies or this new nonprofit corporation,
Mhm.
would they still have the power to remove the funds or cut the funds to the point that, the project couldn't go forward?
Yeah, they call
Is that a possibility?
they call it clawing back the funds is maybe the term you were looking for here. And maybe nobody knows. It's a difficult time in Washington now.
So the second question is concerning this release of restrictions agreement. Does that pertain to the, removing the senior and disabled protections that were discussed during the, town meeting in articles either 18 or 40? Is that part of this?
So that's a really great question. It makes me a smile on my face that you remember that. That is great. And the answer is yes, but they're being imposed in these other agreements. These other agreements we're approving reimposes them. And so that's part of these agreements that, the board is going to be approving tonight.
So the other agreements are the funding, correct?
They have a set of different purposes. Part of them have to do with hiring the developer. You can't, our developer partner can't submit the application on Thursday unless we've actually hired them, you know, so that kind of thing, you know.
You mean hiring Peabody Property?
Yeah, we picked them, but we waited till now to sign the agreement because we wanted to be as up to date as
To
possible.
be officially
Yeah.
recognized.
Yeah,
So, the only thing is, I had a conversation with Betsy Collins, who's Peabody Property
yes.
associated with them. And she had explained to me that, when I had brought up this issue about protecting senior and disabled housing,
Mhm.
she had said to me that on this property that you're proposing to build, that you have to be 62 years, I mean, you have to be within the, financial,
Mhm.
you know, the under 84,400, and then, of course, they're looking for an average of 60 to 62,000 to 80,000
Mhm.
income. But she said it would be for people who were 62 years of age, so
Mhm.
that they weren't really eliminating it, they were just redefining it. So my question is, if you're gonna do the income limit up to 84,000, looking for an average of 60,000 for the prospective tenants, the new ones coming in. I mean, can they be of any age, even if they're not disabled? Just basically somebody,
No.
hey, I only make 70,000, I'm looking for an apartment. And I just wanna be clear on this. Would they be applying for these new apartments other than from the 72 people? And, you know, if it was all completed and to the 136 some odd units, whatever's left over, those new units. Is that up for grabs for anybody as
No.
long as they're within the financial bracket? Or do they
No.
have to be 62?
No, and so, again,
Or
you're,
older?
yeah, so, there's been a deep dive by the town into this and it's in these agreements. In, you know, in several pages, but the summary is that for legal technical reasons, it's coming out of the title and document with this restrictions agreement, and then it's being reimposed in these agreements, but updated in modern language, because what happens is each one of these, let's say we have 10 funding sources, one of which is the town of Needham, and 9 are, you know, and one is low income housing tax credits, and then there are home funds and mass development, housing work funds and so forth. So, you know, each one has its own affordable housing definition and its own elderly housing definition, along with the town's definition, and then the state's definition that we've been using now for 50 or 60 years. The state requires you that if you're gonna tear down 72 existing state units, then and build 72 new ones, even though it's moving to the federal Section 8 program, they still have to provide we still have to provide those 72 units on the same terms and conditions as the 72 units that were down. And so what this agreement memorializes, these agreements, is that the town's agreement and all the other, a town's requirements and all the other requirements from the other 5 or 10 other funding sources all get bundled together into one document, you know, that everybody agrees with. You know, because sometimes it's 65, sometimes it's 62, sometimes it's 55 years old. You know, sometimes it's this income level and sometimes it's that income level. It all gets bundled together. And then at financial closing, everybody signs that agreement. You know, all the funding parties and the Needham Housing Authority and NHA Development Corporation an HSC, they all sign this, like a blizzard of paper, and then it all gets recorded. So it's a master affordability restriction that memorializes all this stuff.
So in other words.
But may I
there'll be
say,
a percentage?
yep. I'm just gonna give everybody a 10-minute alert when I'm gonna hightail it from here. And you know, you'll certainly see these agreements when if you want to.
So would it be a percentage, in other words? In other words, what?
It's
would be
more
10%?
complicated than I can answer right now, but it's all in black and white to be signed by everybody here, so.
Thank you.
Ross, last question, okay?
Yeah, thank you. The tenants, the residents have not been included in any of this. Letters go out to Linden Street people, Chambers Street don't get them. I haven't received anything, as an LTO. I don't think anybody else has either. So I think you run the risk of invalidating, some of these proposals
Okay.
and presentations.
All right, fine. If there's no other commissioner questions, I guess I should be on the hot seat, so I'm gonna make a motion. And if it's okay with the commissioners, not vote on these one at a time, but vote them all 6 at the same time, because that
Yes.
would take quite a bit of time to do. I'm gonna make a motion that the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approve either the executive director of the Needham Housing Authority or the president of the Needham and the NHA Development Corporation, that's our nonprofit, wholly owned subsidiary, to execute these 6 agreements. As follows, the 6 agreements are the no pilot agreement for the Linden Chambers property, the $5.5 million CPA funding grant agreement for the Linden Terrace reconstruction. The third one is the release of restrictions agreement. The fourth one is the land, and those 3 agreements are with the town. These next 3 agreements are with the Peabody Developer LLC and other parties controlled by them. The land disposition and development designation agreement for Linden Street redevelopment. The 5th agreement is phase 1A option to lease real estate. That's the ground lease for the land on which the redevelopment is going to be built. And the phase 1B option to lease real estate, which is for the phase 1B land, it's the 2 acres that is closest to us, plus or minus. Do I have a second?
Second.
I second it.
My chair. Third, seconded. Does everybody want to second it? Any further discussion?
Oh, I'm still here.
We do. Hearing none, I'm sorry, in the middle of vote, but it's
I'm
our,
sorry, I
yeah.
apologize. I'm on order.
I'm gonna call the roll. Reg Foster votes aye.
Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye. You're muted.
Janice, you're muted.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
And I think, again, I agree with everybody's comment. I wish we had more resources available to us but we don't, because but I pledge that as soon as we get through this, we'll start focusing on Cooks Bridge, including likely submitting a CPA funding application next November. So we can get going on rounding up the funding for that project. Okay, we are now the point where I think we can say thank you to Matt and Chris. I also concur with the comments that are made. We would never be here without you folks. So thank you. Appreciate it. And please
Thank you,
convey
the
it to
board,
Margaret
and
as
tenants.
well. Yeah.
We will. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Now being 5:55, I'm going to turn the gavel over, the virtual gavel over to our vice chair, Jim Flanagan, to do the rest of the meeting here.
Great.
Good.
And in good hands of Cheryl, who will keep him on the straight and narrow, won't you, Cheryl? All right, folks, thanks so much.
Thanks. Cheryl will give me a heavy assist on working through the agenda, I'm sure. we're a little out of order.
Thank you, Reg.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The first thing we want to get back to is public comment. We hadn't allowed that more openly. So is there anyone here who wants to make public comment beyond what's already been shared or discussed?
Well, I have a concern, as the discussion on, I think it would be more effective if people that attend the meeting have the right to comment on what has actually been said at the meeting, and having the comment period in the beginning, we really don't have anything to comment on. We could bring up new business, but the bottom line is you're going to be discussing several policy issues, I assume. And we're going to have questions, or I may have questions, and I think other people may also, pertaining to the meeting. So that's when we should be allowed to comment, I think.
Jim, I can take that question if you like.
Janice, please go ahead.
Yeah, Marlene, I just want to say, if you want to sit through an hour and a half, 2 hours and a half, and wait around to comment on the meeting at hand, I'm sure you can, but that's not usually the way we've worked it over the years. Even the board doesn't do that. Well, they do on certain votes, but as a rule, no. We get our agendas and we get to look at them. And I believe you people are now receiving the agenda as well, but we don't do anything differently than we're asking you. So, you make your notes at the meeting and you bring them to the next, or you bring them to your regular LTO with the NHA, that's the way it's always been done.
Yeah, thanks, Janice. I think if I can add to that, it's, we've got policy and we've got formats and agendas to get through. So we'll continue with the public comment up front. I think we've always been pretty flexible, more than most boards, on not limiting people time-wise. But we also showed here today, when things hit some really complex points, there's opportunity for some give and take. So I think we should continue along those lines. So I think we're hearing what you're saying. And if we could just agree to follow enough structure and kind of create enough flexibility over time. Yeah.
One of the comments I had, Jim, is the horse that left the barn. Kenneth's comment may not even be a fresh complaint the next meeting. When we meet once a month, we get stale bread. I think there should be a portion of time so that the tenants can comment immediately, as we're the ones that are being affected. And I think you should take that in the whole board, take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Agreed. And the tenants, just to finish because I didn't have 3 minutes, that's the whole point, I think, or one of the major points of the tenant participation policy, or amending the tenant participation policy, that we're actually going to be able to have a significant voice. Commenting on something a month later, when most people, they're not even going to remember, what we're talking about or dealing with. It just seems a very poor way of going forward. It doesn't give the tenants any power to really raise an important issue. I mean, you only have 3 minutes anyway, so if we're gonna spend 2 hours, I don't see what's wrong with giving tenants, a handful of tenants 3 minutes. Because that would be the proper thing to do if you really wanted to have input from the tenant. So the tenant participation policy, I think, should be revisited to include or have a discussion of that issue that I've raised. The other thing is, since we've done a lot of new policies, the recreation policy, for example, pet policy, which, by the way, Linden and Chambers had no say whatsoever. Yet we're forced to live with those decisions made by another board, whether it was Seabed or Cook or whomever. we didn't even have a seat at the table to discuss any of that. Now, Cheryl brought up the very good point that it can always be amended and it can always be discussed, and I thank her for that. But I just want to say going forward, Linden and Chambers, we've got 150 people here at least. And we should have a seat at the table, just like everyone else, to discuss our ideas about these policies. And I don't think it's right that we were excluded. And the only other thing I want to mention is I think that we should revisit the parking policy. At least for Linden and Chambers. So I'll speak for Linden and Chambers because I live here. And there is a desperate need to revisit the parking policy. Now, I don't know if it's a set parking policy, the way the new pet policy works, or the recreational policy works, but we need to have a discussion about parking policy and everything that parking entails here at Linden and Chambers.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to have that recorded and in the notes for this meeting.
Anyone else for public?
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Yes, please.
David Shubo, 28 Chambers. Just to finish, I did mention in my comment about two questions to Reggie. I said, my answer is also to say, that's good about the 10 years, or we're not about exact radar, because we could live in our place for now. It's not gonna be an issue right now, riding on the radar. The other thing I was gonna say was, I haven't really been involved exactly in the last year. I have been working, but I have been involved in redevelopment over the beginner, the other part of the, we fully changed it. And I was mentioning, I was wondering, because there was a resident office, we went for office, and then some people were selected. I was going for office. I was like an advocate or assistant if somebody didn't go, but I am interested in being involved, and there is only the resident meeting people here. There's no other people in the housing chambers or Linden or anyone. There's some people online. There's not a lot of other people. I do want to advocate and be an advocate. I mentioned to Ross about being an advocate in English and anywhere I can be an assistant, helping drive the elderly or assistants and friends around. I also wanted to know about what happened in the last year or last couple months, as there were some other meetings that I wasn't attending that I didn't know. I haven't been exactly given the information. I am also interested in the preservation and town meeting information, and also the select board, and I'm interested in a lot of things like the recycle center and everything.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Anything else?
It's the third Thursday of every month, these meetings here, it's a set time. Well, then you should tell him, because he doesn't know about the meetings.
Well, also, this is for us to receive comments, and one thing I was gonna say is we have an executive director to interface and follow up with while we get to the work of this governing board. Right? Anything else? Anybody online?
Yes.
Yes.
Do.
Sue?
Ready?
Sue?
Hello. I'm back.
Yes.
I'm actually speaking on one of the policies that, has been instituted is for people who have passed away, and their families, if there's no will, the families may have to go through probate and everything. And I'm wondering how long Needham Housing should have to wait on a probate court decision. Because as it stands right now, we've got at least 3 empty apartments up here on seabeds where the folks have passed away, the families have, come and gone, and the apartments are still empty, and it's been a very, very, very long time. And I keep thinking about, folks that really need a place, to call home. How long should Needham Housing be waiting on a probate court decision.
Carol, do you want to address that now or
So
offline?
we don't have a policy that Sue has mentioned. And we have reached out to those families of those vacant units.
But,
Thank
I mean, how long do you have to wait until those units can actually be utilized for somebody else?
Once we conclude our conversations with the families.
I'll figure it out.
Okay. All right.
That doesn't, if the families aren't saying anything,
Sue, I
maybe
can't
something,
go into a private
something
matter.
different needs to be done, maybe.
So, we're gonna have to wrap this here,
Yep.
it's just, you can't
Okay.
discuss matters and, okay?
All right, thank
Thanks.
you.
All right, I think moving on with the agenda, was there anyone else online, Cheryl?
No.
Okay.
Figure it out.
It's everything.
Where are we? Right off the bat here?
We are at the,
Review NHA bill schedule, check
Yes.
warrant, right?
yes,
Okay, do we start with one or two or do
so
them together?
the board, if they would like to approve the warrant, we can open that up for discussion.
Yeah,
And
I don't
there
know.
is
Expense.
any,
one warrant at a time.
got it, so what,
Sure.
any board members? I see Penny there, please.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this is the right place to ask this question. I'm looking at page 28 and 29, expenses. There's a redaction on each page. And the expense was $150 each. It's unusual to have a redaction, so I just wondered what that's all about.
I might be able to answer that, Penny.
We always
Hey, Carol
redact
first, please, Janice.
resident
Yep.
information, okay? So if it's
I'm
redacted.
sorry, say that, I didn't understand that. What?
Always redact resident information. So if it's redacted, we're protecting the privacy of residents.
Okay.
That's why it's redacted.
Yep.
And I just wanted to add, it could have been a voided check. I've seen some voided checks lately, so, but they were mailed to the wrong address or something similar.
What else on the warrant, NHA bill schedule check warrant?
No.
Anything else? Okay, is it appropriate that I move to approve NHA bill schedule check warrant for $561,761.98?
Second. Second,
I hear you, Janice seconds. And I will, let me call the roll. Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
All right. Next up, HRH LLC bill schedule check warrant for $50,995.62.
Second,
Any comments? Well, any questions or comments first, or? All right, move that we approve that. Janice has a second already. Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Fantastic, we're on a roll. Now we move to the consent agenda. 5 items on the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items that they want to pull from the consent agenda before we move them as a whole?
No.
No.
No,
Okay, I therefore move that we approve the consent agenda. Do I have to?
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
I want to beat Janice this time.
It's quick.
2 points,
have-
Ben.
Do I have to elaborate on that, Cheryl?
No, Reg would like us to vote on that as well, even though we're not pulling anything on.
Yeah.
He thought it was a good idea to roll call.
We will, yeah, good. So, but in calling and moving the consent agenda, do I have to specify the items on it or not?
No, you don't,
Okay.
but the items are.
Oh, yeah.
Approved
So,
by unanimous.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second,
Seconded,
All right, heard Ed on that second. Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Great, consent agenda moved. Moving on to the executive director's report. Cheryl, take it away, please.
Okay, and so the first item is the HUD Capital Fund Emergency and Safety Grant. This is a grant for $250,000 that we as an agency are going to apply for. I put some information in your packet on the grant from page 62. This grant will supply us with, one of the things that we are going to have to do is make sure that we have smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in all of our federal units, and this grant will cover that cost as well, along with safety and security cameras that I'm hoping that we'll be able to cover in the cost of this grant. So we have a grant writer on board that is working on this for us. He's done work for us before. His name is Ian Think, and he has written the FSS and the Ross Service Coordinator grant. We are also going to apply for a non-presidential emergency funding grant, and hopefully we'll be able to use that money to do some of the work that's needed at Captain Robert Cook Drive on the pipe issues. But he brought that to my attention when we were discussing this grant, and that the non-presidential emergency grant would be another grant to apply for. So we are going to apply for both of those grants.
Is that, can I just say, is that for the underground infrastructure?
Yes, the non-presidential, the non-presidential emergency grant is the one that is for the underground infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah, any questions about that? So I just put that in your information as in your packet as a point of information so that you.
And how long does it take to get a reply for and have the money granted to take care of that underground infrastructure problem that's been persisting for a while now?
The non-presidential emergency grant has been around for 2 years now, and so funding is running low on that. There are no guarantees. We are going to apply anyway, and hopefully we'll get some of the available money left in that grant program. So it's already an open grant program for housing authorities to apply to. So I don't know, I think when the money runs out, that's it, can't apply.
And just for the record, the understanding is some residents, at least one, have been able or had to move out because the unit is inhabitable.
Well,
Or
it's not that,
condemned.
can I correct
Go ahead.
that?
Go, please.
It's not inhabitable. The only person that can deem a unit inhabitable, or the only organization or group, is the public health department.
Yeah.
So it's not inhabitable. It's just that we have to jack the floor and get down in there. So that we need to make sure it's safe, and it's not safe for someone to be in the unit while this work is being done.
Yeah.
So we did move them out to a vacant unit at Linden, at the Linden Street area. We did move out 2 families so that we can get that work done. We have gotten quotes on how much
Yep.
the work will cost, and so we're moving forward.
Thank you.
The emergency grant, however, has a deadline of March 27th, so we're working close to get that done.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
my question is, has the health department been involved? No,
Has the health department been involved? There hasn't been a complaint.
right, right.
Yeah,
But if there were, they would most likely be condemned. And, you know, I just want to go further on that, Cheryl and Jim, because we've got an infrastructure problem down here. And this
Yep.
is why it's so sad that Cooks is not being first.
Yep.
And this is why we have to be vigilant on getting the money. I don't care what it takes, because, you know, if we implode, it's, we're not looking good down here right now.
Yeah, no, thank you, Janice. Thanks. Anything more on that? Or move on to the Assistant Executive Director Job Search update? Thanks.
okay,
Go ahead.
so, thank you. That's the vice chair. So the Assistant Executive Job Search, I do have three very strong candidates that I have been speaking with regarding the position. And really have had comprehensive conversations with all three of them, because the job is it's very vast. There's a lot to do in the position. So I had private conversations with them to give them more information on the job, and to let them know and to assure them that they will get the support and training that they need to be successful in the job. So after having those types of conversations, they are excited about the position, which is great. And so my next steps is to schedule the interviews.
Thank you. Thanks. Any
So more
questions?
to come.
Questions from the board? Okay.
How soon, will you be able to move forward on that, Cheryl, to go ahead and schedule the interviews?
Yes, I'm hoping to schedule the interviews the first or second week of March. One of the candidates is getting married, so I'm not quite sure if that conflicts with her schedule, but my plan is to move forward the first or second week of, the second week of March.
Thank you.
Thanks. We don't want to lose any candidates.
No, these are great candidates, very
Okay,
strong
so
candidates.
anything we can do
Yeah.
to keep moving with.
I can't wait to
appropriate-
share that with you, their resumes and
Okay.
all of that when the time comes.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, moving on.
So the next item is the tenant participation policy. This policy is really directly from the CMR on tenant participation, the Code of Massachusetts Register. And the policy is a great policy. It helps the agency to have a plan in place to help residents who want to engage in the process of tenant organization. I've given a copy of this draft policy to the LCRA. The Cooksbridge Tenant Association will get a copy of this policy as well. This policy really is in place so that, if beyond the present tenant organization, this policy exists to help other resident leaders form and organize. It describes how to set up an organization, how to form elections, how to go through the nomination period. And then it also talks about the housing authority's role in it to the LTO. It describes terms of participation and assistance to the LTO. And those terms of participation and assistance comes directly from the CMR. So the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities really wants residents to be successful in this process, and this policy describes that. Right, so it's more than just, this is not how you participate at a meeting, but really this is how you operate as a board, a local tenant organization, and how you interact with the housing authority, and how the housing authority can monitor that governance.
Okay.
So it's a very good policy that I'd like the board to consider. It's just in review for now. We need some more comments from our resident associations and RAB board, and then we'll bring it back to you for a final vote.
Good, thank you. Any questions from the board on that?
I have a question.
Yes, Janice.
Cheryl, you and I know that a resident association is the most important body of people to help themselves in public housing. It's a very good policy, upgrade on the policy, but I didn't see one thing in there I was looking for. I know there's an umbrella there for, i.e. an example of when seabeds wanted to create their own TO, and the state didn't allow it because of proximity. And when Pam Allen came in, she thought she was going to be able to change it, but the governor refused it. And the thing I didn't see there was sorry, I'm losing it here for a minute. Okay, the thing I didn't see was the for the TOs to create committees. I.e. I can remember when there was a committee to go out and purchase furniture. But then we had to involve the housing authority to get the payment. So therefore, I'm not considering it a TO bylaw, okay? Because it involves money that the housing authority has to put forward. But there are other committees that they may want to establish, recruiting committees, say for board members of board positions to be filled. I didn't see any of that in the participation policy, but it is a great policy and it did need to be updated, but like this is just a suggestion that you
Yeah.
may want to clarify the committees that they should be able to form.
Great.
So yes, Janice, that's part of their own governance. If they want to have a committee for one thing or another, that's what they do. This really is regarding governance and how the organization operates in terms of, again, elections, in terms of nominations, elections, recall elections, setting up bylaws, setting up, their meetings. But if they want, how they have committees within their own organization is really not part of this policy. That's a
bylaw then, okay?
Yeah, that's their own governance, if you will, on how they want to have committees, establish committees. We just want to, ensure that the process of running an organization is done correctly, and that there's oversight there as well, and that we as an agency are following the CMR that encourages resident participation. But I don't want to have a policy to tell them how to create a committee, et cetera. That's really their purview to do that.
So it's a bylaw for them. Probably.
Yeah, it's part of their bylaws or however they want to do it, but I do, you know, I am open for comments and discussion from, you know, we'll have it with the RAB board and we'll have it with the Cooks Bridge Tenant Association, and we'll meet again with the LCRA, because this is actually going to affect them directly. So before the policy comes before the board for a final vote.
Great. Thank you. Thanks on that.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you,
I think
Janice.
moving forward, human resources policy.
And so this really is just for your review. I've hired a global human resources benefits and benefit specialist to help us update this policy. That's all I really want to do. I want to have a certain, I want it to be more clear about certain aspects of the policy where I believe it's pretty gray. So I had first approached our attorneys regarding this, and it's too much of a heavy lift for them to kind of go over it page by page. So I'm going to engage the work of a consultant who will help us clean, you know, organize the policy. And then our employment attorneys will look it over for a final review. And then it will come back to the board as amended. So that will be another amendment to this existing policy. We're not making any major changes, just need some things to be more clear in there. In terms of exempt employees, non-exempt employees, salary employees, hourly employees. So we just want to have it more succinct, more comprehensive, more clear. And it might lead to also the development of a employee handbook. So,
Curious.
Yes.
For all of the public housing authorities in Massachusetts, isn't there a template? or
there is a
kind of an
template that is done by Medford Housing Authority. Jeff Driscoll does an actual course on this with Mass Narrow for the public housing management certification, and it's a good policy, but it's just too broad and too gray. So I just like to have it a little more crisp for my management side. Yeah, a little more precise. So there are things in here that can be inhibited if we don't have them in the policy. I can't bring it up.
Okay.
So I've run into situations that need to be addressed, but because we don't have a policy on it, I can't make it up as I go.
Okay.
And I would prefer that everyone is treated fairly.
So maybe Needham's will be the new template.
It could be. You know, the consultant has this policy. They also have the Medford Housing Authority policy and a template that is used to teach housing agencies. So they have three things to go on.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm hoping that it's not going to be a heavy lift.
Good.
we
Any
can get it
comments or
done.
questions from any of the board members on that? Great. All right, moving on, that completes the executive director's report, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
We're jumping over because we did the PRI update. Jumping to E status update, correct? Internal initiatives.
Internal initiatives.
Question about the executive director's report.
Yes, Penny, please.
Just a quick question. I know that the local cultural council awarded a $600 grant. What is the plan for spending that grant?
Yeah, so that's a grant. I don't know a whole lot about it. I don't have the background from the grant writer. But I was told a few days ago that the grant was a grant that teaches history through play. That's the thing. And so I need to reach out to the grant writer to get more information of their intention on that grant so that we could
That would be me.
Okay, so that we could possibly put something
And this
together.
is a history reenactor.
Yeah, it sounds great. I love the idea of teaching history. That's what the woman from the local arts council told me when she described the grant. It's teaching history through play. I thought that was a great idea. I just don't know.
Play
anything
is
else.
not the word. Drama, maybe.
Yeah,
It's
well,
not play. It's not
again,
that
it was-
people are engaging in play. It is a
It's-
reenactment of a historical event.
So that kind of information is what I need to kind of move forward to implement the grant.
Well,
And-
I'm available whenever you want to get in touch with me.
It sounds like you will address that offline and we'll
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Penny.
Thank you, Penny.
Um,
Thank you so much. And I will reach out to you. Thank
Great.
you, thank you.
Thanks.
Great idea. Great
Um,
grant.
Cool. Anything else before we move forward to status updates? Nothing? Okay.
And then D was the, just a brief update on the Cooks After School program. So, we have after school now at Cooks, and we also have after school here at Linden Chambers. I believe it's on Thursdays. And our cohort of students at Cooks is dwindling even faster because, this couple of the students that attended the Cooks program is being transferred to Highwalk while work is being done in their unit, so they won't have access to that program. But we've been doing a lot of outreach to our community partners. We've met with Amy Goldberg, who is the Director of Adult Ed for Needham Public Schools, and they have offered scholarships for our students who want to participate in some of the spring offerings. And one of our students did sign up for a Lego program. So that's a good thing. And then the tutors that come here at Linden Chambers, these are high school folks. And they are fluent in Russian, Mandarin, and Chinese. So we're actually going to help them with some interpretation of our newsletters so that we can get that out to our population of folks here who may not.
Very good.
Yeah, but they are very helpful to the students that come here. We do have an incentive for them to get them to come, and it's only for an hour, so they do come in and do some work, and then they engage with the tutors in other activities. So so we're still working on developing the program, and also more importantly, developing that space, which is a great space to be utilized. And so we have some ideas for adult learning for the Captain Robert Cook Drive conference room. Let's see, the Youth Commission has also been working with us and reaching out to our students to provide incentives for them to come in and participate in activities and talk about whatever is on their mind. Let's see, oh, I can't think of any other thing. We did have the Mr. Polanski concert at the Elliott School. Just before the winter break, and that went well. It was a good turnout and it went well. We are gonna have the Boston Rovers, which isn't part of after school, but we are gonna have the Boston Rovers here on March 13th. It's a St. Patty's party here at Linden Chambers on March 13th. So that's all I
I
got.
always appreciate that. Good. Actually, I've got a conference on March, it's during the week, it's not a weekend.
It's a Thursday, March 13th is a Thursday.
Oh, well, great event.
Do you know what time that's gonna be? held?
5 o'clock.
All right, final item, new business.
Yes, so this was from a previous agenda to update the payment standards for the payment standards for 2025 had gone down. And I had wanted to the board information on fair market rents, which have gone down. Our payment standards are based on the fair market rent. We multiply a percentage between 90 and 110% to get the payment standard. But we want to keep the 2024 payment standards because they would be lower than the 2025. So the 2025 fair market rents have gone down. That means when we calculate the payment standard based on that percentage I just mentioned, that will go down as well. So housing authorities have appealed to HUD to continue to use the 2024 standards because the fair market rents, I'm just gonna read a little statement, the fair market rents going down. Housing authorities have appealed to HUD. There's appeal going on by the larger PHAs, which will likely delay implementation of the 2025 fair market rent. So they're not, they are still being, the fair market rents are not the official rent as noted by HUD. 2025 fair market rents are not official as noted by HUD until this appeal process goes through. So housing authorities are continuing to use at the permission of their board, the 2024 fair market rents and or also payment standards.
What is that amount? I'm just curious for 2024, what is the fair market amount?
So the fair market rents for 2024 are is that okay? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't, I'm sorry.
I didn't be asking the questions on the
Information.
floor. It's just,
Yes, that is not part of this meeting, but
Oh, well.
yeah, but
It
the
was,
fair market rents are for efficiency units are 2,260. This is the 2024 rates. 1 bedroom, 2430, 2 bedroom, 2890. And all of this information is online. You could just go on the HUD's website and get this information. Google. Fair,
yes.
correct,
Yep.
but
Thank you.
it's the chair that runs the meeting, and I didn't mean to speak out of line.
Right.
3 bedrooms is 3490, 4 bedrooms, 3840. So, yeah, it's high.
Rates
But the
are
fair market
insane.
rents went down, so that's a
Okay.
good thing, but
And so, I think that wraps up new business, right?
yes, sir.
Birds are coming for coffee at 10:30 on Friday.
We're at the end of the meeting. And I've been making motions. Can the chair make motions or someone else?
Yes, sir. Reg does it all.
I just want to doubly, I just want to make sure, so I move that we close this meeting.
Second,
Second it.
Thank you. Cheryl, or Janice, you got the first second on that. And Jim Flanagan votes aye.
Ed,
I'm sorry, Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Janice Bennett votes aye.
Great, thanks, everyone. The meeting is closed, adjourned.
Thank you.
Good
Have a good
night.
rest of the night, everybody.
Thanks.
All right.
I'm just wondering.